Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT, and I came here to talk some boxing with the thousands of True School Sports subscribers. What's going on, guys? Now, word to my brethren in Baltimore, Maryland. Shout out to Baltimore, Maryland. Speaking of Baltimore, Maryland, Gervonta Tank Davis, hot topic these days. The last couple days in boxing, I haven't made any videos in a couple of days, so I have a lot to catch up on, and a lot of it involves Mr. Tank Davis, the IBF champion at 130 pounds, or 130 pounds. So 135, not 130, 135. So Gervonta Tank Davis, he was recently at the Jason Sosa Vasily Lomachenko fight, and that was a fight where obviously a lot of people are looking at Tank Davis as maybe that guy in the next couple years to give Lomachenko a challenge. He has a lot of skill, a lot of power, great amateur pedigree. And after the fight, as most of you will know, there was a verbal confrontation between him and a fellow 135-pounder, Tevin Farmer. You guys, most of you may know Tevin Farmer. He's the guy from Philadelphia, and they're both. Tevin Farmer is one of those guys that he's looking to get a title shot later this year, probably for the WBC belt. So Tevin Farmer is, I guess what happened was, from what I saw in the video, Gervonta approached Tevin Farmer for whatever reason, and then Tevin Farmer wound up asking him, when I get my WBC title, will we fight each other and unify? And it was funny because I've seen a number of Gervonta Davis interviews, and I've never in my life, seen Gervonta Davis animated. I've never seen him really talk that much. He's just always been kind of quiet. But then all of a sudden, he starts talking, and I just hear this guy do his best, Floyd Mayweather impression. And he starts saying, "Well, I can't fight you. You got a loss, and you got this, and you got that." So basically, it continued for a number of minutes, and Sam Watson, basically Al Heyman's right hand guy, was there to take in the whole thing, and he exchanged words with Tevin Farmer. And Tevin Farmer would go on to say things like, if I had Al Heyman behind me, I'd be a two-time world champion. Which, I'm not gonna say he wouldn't be. He's not wrong in saying that these guys with Al Heyman, they do get a bit of an easier path to a world title. That's not a secret. Most of them do. So, with that being said, Tevin Farmer, this is a fight. If it does happen this year, which it can, because, like I said, Tevin's gonna get a title shot at some point. And Tank Davis, he's got a fight coming up on May 20th against Liam Walsh, so he has to make sure he takes care of that business, because that's not even a gimme in itself. He has to go over to the UK, mind you, and I'm gonna break this down in a minute. Mind you, he has to go over to the UK. This is a guy that, for the first time in his career, had a test, and he passed it with flying colors. I gotta give him his credit there. He beat Jose Pedraza very soundly, and it was a sensational performance. But I was actually at Gervonta Davis' fight before that, and a lot of you guys probably didn't even watch that fight because it wasn't on television, or at least I don't remember being on television. He fought in the undercard of Rancis Bartholomew versus Mickey Bay, and he fought a guy by the name of Mario Antonio Macias, and that guy that I just told you guys about, Mr. Mario. He had a record of 28-21, and he's been stopped 14 times. He's been knocked out 14 times. And I remember watching that fight. I believe it was a second round TKO or first. Might have been a first round TKO. I don't remember right now. But I'm not insinuating. It looked like a dive to me, honestly. He barely got touched, and the dude fell to the ground, and they called it a stoppage. That was the fight he had before he fought Pedraza, and then he took a major step up in fighting Pedraza, who was a solid talent, but the weakest of the champions for sure. So, what happened when they fought each other, or when they got into the little verbal argument, was Tevin Farmer, Gervonta Davis said to Tevin Farmer, he said, "You haven't been tested yet," and Tevin Farmer said that I've been tested more than you. Now, before I even went and looked, that actually sounded accurate, because I know that Gervonta Davis has fought literally nobody outside of Pedraza. So what I did was I excluded their last fights, both of their last fights. I took, Tevin Farmer fought some 12-2 guy, and Gervonta fought Pedraza, who I believe might have been undefeated. So I excluded the last fights, and I just looked at the last four, the combined record of the last four opponents, right? So when you look at their actual, I had it right. I had it in front of me. Damn it, now I don't have it. But it was like Gervonta had his combined record of his last 4 opponents were like 101 and 45, and Tevin Farmer's was 107 and 23. So Tevin's fought slightly better opposition, and he's looked more sensational doing it in probably every fight. There are some fights where Tank Davis didn't look the most impressive. So with that being said, I hope this fight happens. I really, really hope this fight happens. Tank Davis is still, wet behind the ears, as they would say. And Tevin Farmer, he's probably the guy you would say is entering the prime of his career. So I'd actually favor Tevin Farmer. And I know a lot of people pick Tank Davis because of the power and maybe that he has a slight reach advantage. And there's a lot of gloss on him right now because he has the undefeated record. And he just beat Pedraza. But Tevin Farmer, regardless of the 4 losses that he took fairly early in his career when he wasn't really taking boxing seriously, once he kind of focused more on the sport, he really hasn't lost sense. And he's actually proven himself to be one of the most defensively skilled fighters in the whole sport. Now, that's still yet to be tested against a big name like that. The biggest name he has on his resume is Ivan Redkach, and that says a lot. But Tevin Farmer has been active. I know he's sharp. One thing about boxing is it's not one of those sports where you can take off, and you need to have your rhythm at all times in boxing. And Tevin Farmer, for sure, he's had a lot of momentum behind him. Like, you look at 2016, he had 4 fights in 2016, won them all very comfortably via unanimous decision. You look at 2015, he had 3 fights, won them all. 2014, he had another 4 fights. So this is a guy who over the last couple of years has been active. He's been getting better, and he's entering the prime of his career. And Gervonta Davis, I just look at his character and how he's acted in the past. He's always been a guy that doesn't really talk that much, and he looked like he really sounded a lot like Floyd Mayweather when I was watching that whole little verbal scuffle they had. And he was saying things like, I can't fight you. You got 4 losses, but he's fighting guys with 18 losses, 5 losses, 31 losses. So the trash talk is real. I think if it does happen to be a good fight, I would love to see Gervonta Davis in there with someone who is a little more athletic. No disrespect to Pedraza. He's a good fighter, but he's someone in the past that we've seen, kind of exposed. I hate using that word because it's overused in boxing, but he was exposed in many ways against a older fighter, a good veteran fighter, but an older fighter, and a Cherry. And if Tank was to get in there with someone more athletic, defensively skilled, and while it might not reflect in his knockout percentage because Tevin Farmer does not have a lot of knockouts, he's one of those guys that I believe he has enough power to keep you at bay. And like I said, Gervonta has not fought a puncher. He is yet to fight. I guess if you want to count Pedraza, that may be the closest thing, but it's not like he's fighting a list of killers. So I can see a Tevin Farmer unanimous decision all the way, him counter-punching Gervonta all night long. Because, even Pedraza had success against Gervonta Davis he had his moments in that fight. So with that being said, Tevin Farmer, if they fight, a lot of people wouldn't pick him. I'd pick him to win. I think he beat Gervonta Davis right now at this stage of Tank's career because he's still very green, and I think we're actually gonna learn a lot about Tank because while Liam Walsh is kind of a basic boxer, while Liam Walsh is not the best fighter in the world, he still has to go to the UK. He's still got to shine. He still got to perform. And Liam Walsh has never lost. And Liam Walsh is a decent puncher. And when we look at Liam Walsh's resume, the only known guy that I know on his resume is his last fight, which was against Andrei Kimov, a guy who's been around that weight for a little bit. That guys like Terrence Crawford have fought, and he beat him. So you got to be a certain level of good to beat a guy like Andrei Kimov. He's one of those type of fighters, gatekeepers. So we'll see if Gervonta can rise to the occasion, and if that does happen, and Tevin Farmer is able to snatch up a title, then it's put up or shut up. You gotta actually make the damn fight happen, which will be the ultimate test because we know that he's promoted by Floyd Mayweather. And Floyd Mayweather's philosophy, which I can't knock if you're looking at boxing for strictly business, and it is a business. His philosophy has always been, I want to take the lowest risk for the highest reward, which I feel he will do for his fight. That's what the Pedraza fight was because he wasn't going to let him near the other more experienced fighters. So he took that risk, that very very small risk there. and it really, really paid off as Tank is now a champion and he can put himself in a position for big fights. But I want to see this fight happen. The trash talk got me really excited, and I like the fact that when you look at both these fighters and their backgrounds, it's really a contrast. Tank is the guy that's been more catered to. He's looked at as the future of boxing. Tevin's that fighter that's had to get it from the mud. And when you have 4 losses so early in your career, oftentimes in boxing, because he had 4 losses in his first 12 fights, so he lost a third of his first 12 fights. When you have that many losses that early on, boxing, especially the promoters and stuff, they just throw you to the wolves. You're an opponent for the rest of your career, and you basically get written off. And Tevin Farmer's had to rise from obscurity, get sharper year after year after year, and here we are now. And he's knocking at the door of a championship greatness at the lightweight division. And I'm looking very forward to seeing if Tevin Farmer can rise to the occasion and get rid of Gervonta Davis's goose egg should they ever fight. So let me know what you guys think. Who would win if they did fight, and let me know why you would favor which fighter over the other down below in the comments. And you can love me or you can hate me, but I'm just a kid from Dang It. So until next time, take care, guys.